in the last video, we baked some yummy, yummy pumpkin, which you can use for all kinds of things. Soup, you can just eat it, which is what I actually did with some cinnamon and sugar on it. You can also use it to make a pie. Today, one of my favorite holiday traditions is baking pies. I have baked pies with every class that I've ever had. We've baked pumpkin pies. I bake pies with my kids, and you can see today I have my helper Ellie, who is here, and we are going to bake a pumpkin pie. So the first thing we need to do is work on the crust. My amazing buttermilk pie crust recipe makes 2 crusts, but if you've ever eaten a pumpkin pie, you know we only need 1. So the first thing we have to do is cut the recipe in half. So I'm going to let you guys go work on the math, and when you're done, bring the recipe back and we'll get it made, okay? Okay, so now that you've got your math done, we are ready to make our pie crust. So the first thing we need to do is mix the flour and the salt. Do you want to measure the flour or the salt?
I'll measure the flour.
Okay, 1 cup of flour, and I'll do a ½ teaspoon of salt. While Ellie's doing that, I'm going to get the 1/3 cup of shortening. When we cut it in half, we just need 1/3. When you measure shortening, make sure you pound it down in there, otherwise it will get air pockets. Shortening is a solid. As you can see, it holds the shape of the container that it's in. So even though it's not in the cup anymore, it's still holding that cup shape. That's one of the properties of a solid. And you want to make sure there are no air pockets in that solid clump of shortening. Okay, now we want to do what's called cutting in the shortening. So my grandma used to just use 2 knives. I have a fancy pastry blender. They're not very sharp, but they are kind of like little knives right here. And I cut the shortening, which essentially, that's what it's doing, is cutting the shortening into tiny little pieces. And then each piece of shortening becomes surrounded by flour. You want to try out?
Sure.
Yes, that's right. Thank you for catching that. Good reading, Elle. We need to get the butter. It calls for 3 tablespoons of butter. What is half of 3? Half of 2 is 1. So 1 and 1, and that leaves us with 1 left. If we cut that final 1 left in half, we have another half. So we have a 1 and a half. Butter is marked in tablespoons on the edge, so you can just cut it to find the right size. 1 1/2 tablespoons. All right, cut that in, Elle. We need to get them until the particles are the size of small peas.
I know.
Okay, and then we mix in the oil and the buttermilk.
I like knowing what we're going to do so I can kind of seem like I prepared for this. And not just...
I'm not going to cut that part out. I want to let everybody know that you didn't prepare. Here, you gotta, it's just clumping up in there.
Yeah.
So clean it
some
out.
on the side.
Okay, good, yeah, we're gonna get all that good. The butter and the shortening is the fat. That's the yellow part.
Okay.
So once the shortening and butter have been cut into small pieces about the size of peas, then we're ready for the next step. So it's starting to look like dough, and now we're going to add the oil. The recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of vegetable oil. Really, vegetable oil is the best. If you use olive oil or something else at your house for pie, vegetable oil is your best. What's half of 2 teaspoons?
It'd be 1 teaspoon.
You are correct. You want to get that measured, Ellie?
Sure.
Then we need half of a third a cup of buttermilk. Shake up the buttermilk. You can find buttermilk that has fat in it and makes this a little better. This is the best I could find. I don't even have a 1/6 measuring cup, so I'm just going to stop when I see that I'm at half of 1/3. And there it is. Mix that up with a fork there, Ellie. All right, so you've probably noticed that our ingredients are disappearing. One of my tricks is I get all the ingredients out before I bake, and I actually put them away when I'm done using them. And then I get to the end, and if I have no ingredients left, I know I've got everything in there that belongs in there. So the only thing I'm going to need is some flour as we roll out this pie crust. If you have something like parchment paper, or I have actually a Silpat pie, I have a Silpat pie mat, which is awesome for rolling things. If you have something like that, great. If you don't, sprinkle a little flour on your countertop, take the pie crust out, and you'll know if it kind of stays in a little ball like that, you've done a pretty good job. Pie crust should be flaky. So when you just pat it down a little bit, I see some nice layers developing. I know we've got a pretty good pie. My pie mat actually has measurements on it, which is awesome. We are going to make a 9-inch pie, so I know exactly how far to roll it out. So when you're rolling, let the rolling pin do the work for you. Don't push. Start by doing kind of an X, and then once you've got kind of an even situation, then keep it going out evenly from the center. Want to do some rolling?
Sure.
From the center out. Start with the center and go out. So that's okay when you see those little wrinkles like that, then you just roll over them this way. Remember not to push.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it smooth on the top at all times if you can. You're getting and nice. That was just right. Okay, you're plenty big enough over here. Good. Excellent. Excellent. Very nice. Yes, good job. Yes. A little more this way because we just got to get to that last. It's beautiful. Always from the center out. So like if you want to get those little guys out, start in the center and roll them that way. Roll them that way. I think we're done. I think that looks great. All right, let's put it in the pie tin. Okay, so to get it off of the mat and into the pie tin is really easy if you have a mat. I just lift up the whole mat and I turn it upside down and plop it right in there and then peel it off. Now it often shrinks a little bit as it leaves the mat. No worries. Just take your fingers and push it from the center out towards the sides and up the edges a little bit. We don't want pie crust to be too thick. Pie crust is best when it's flaky. So then I'm just going to bring it up the sides with my thumbs. See how I'm doing that, Elle? Go ahead and do your side. You want it to hang off the edges a little bit if you can, so we can do the pretty twist. You also want it to be down in the corners. And try to keep it nice. Okay, then we crimp the edges. So you crimp the edges by folding the edge in just a little bit. And then you can make, lots of people use different things to make designs. You can just make a quick little fold, kind of a crinkle. Some people like to do a fork design. There's really no right or wrong. It's whatever you like. Thanks for your help, Ellie. Ready for the pie?
Mm-hmm.